Hello and welcome to another episode of Trip 101 Travel Talk series. Today I'm welcoming two guests, Fran and Max, who are on their journey across Asia right now. And I'm very excited to talk to them about the country of Laos. So before we do that, a very warm welcome to you, Fran and Max. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, thank you.
I would love to know a little bit about you and the journey that you're taking right now. It's a 12-month adventure, I read.
Yeah, so the trip that we plan to do is 12 months in total. That was our plan. We're on month 5 at the moment, so we're primarily focusing on Southeast Asia and trying to slow travel as much as possible. So taking a little bit longer in these places, and we've managed to go to quite a few, five countries.
Yeah.
So we started with Japan, and we've been to Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia.
Back into Thailand and then off to the Philippines soon.
Yeah, off to the Philippines tomorrow. So it's going very well so far.
So okay. So how did you select which all countries you would visit during this time? I'm especially interested in how Laos came into your radar.
Yeah, I think because we're traveling around Southeast Asia, we wanted to really focus on budget-friendly places. We hadn't really heard too much about Laos, and we wanted to explore the place for ourselves and see what it had to offer. And we were really pleasantly surprised, to be honest. We've been in some other countries before, and being in Vietnam, it was quite affordable for us. But when we went into Laos, it felt very similar, and the people were really friendly, and we were very pleasantly surprised overall. It was a really nice place, and we were delighted that we made the choice to go and give it a try.
Oh, nice. So how long did you spend over there?
3 weeks in total, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think 3 weeks, and we left to go to Laos in late January this year. And yeah, so we came back out of Laos in the middle of February-ish.
Yeah, we started at the north and we slowly worked our way down to the south and then exited through the south as well.
So was 3 weeks like a good enough time to see a lot of the country, or looking back you feel that it would have been better to spend a few more days?
Few more days.
I think it would have been good to spend 6 weeks in Laos. I think we're very restricted with the visa that we can get for Laos. I think we had about 3 or 4 weeks that we could spend there.
Yeah.
But if we had the perfect amount of time, I think it would have been 6 weeks just to get to a few other places and spend longer in some places that we really enjoyed. So that would have been ideal. But we managed to pack a lot into the 3 or so weeks that we were there for, and it was fantastic.
Okay. That's nice. Of course, we always feel that if only we had a few more days, we would have done a lot more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So if you have to tell someone about Laos now, what would you tell them? What did you experience over there, or what's special about this country? Why should other people visit it?
It's super affordable. Probably the biggest sell for us. It was very easy to get around. The people are super, super friendly. And every country we go to, we really like to try a little bit of the language just to say hello, say thank you, and just be really polite. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get around from place to place. In northern Laos in particular, the trains there were fantastic. And we took trains from Luang Prabang, which is where we started off, all the way through to Vientiane, stopping off at Vang Vieng as well. And the trains there were really comfortable and pretty affordable as well. So that was a nice surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're the fast trains, so similar to what we experienced in Japan. The roads in Laos are infamously not that great. A lot of them are dirt roads, lots of big potholes, so that can make travelling by bus a little bit uncomfortable. So the trains were great. I think for me, one of the most unexpected things as well was how beautiful the waterfalls were in Laos. I think they actually were my favourite waterfalls so far on our travels. The water is so incredibly turquoise, really blue, really gorgeous. We went to some really lovely waterfalls, and it's the entry fees really reasonable. You don't have to pay a lot of money to go and swim there. There was lots of little parts that were really unexpectedly beautiful, which I hadn't really read too much about before we went.
Oh, nice. It's definitely a country that hasn't really hit it on the travel map so much. So it's from what you're telling me, it sounds like it's an underrated gem right now, which is super convenient, especially because of the trains. And it's also very budget friendly. So those are definitely quite the thing that would really make it a place for travelers to visit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So which were the towns and cities that you were able to visit during the 3 weeks that you were there?
So we started off in Luang Prabang, which is in the sort of northwest of Laos, after we crossed over from Thailand. And from there, we travelled further south through Vang Vieng, which is a nice little small town with some great hidden gems. So we spent a few days there before we moved on to Vientiane, which is the capital city of Laos, and there was tons to do there. We had some exploring to do and visited a few different places around. And then we made our way further south through to Thak, which was a stopover for us on our way to Paksa. And we spent a few more days there. We had a nice little chill. We had a fantastic hotel in Paksa, which was very nice. And then we finished off in Don Det, which is one of our favorite places, really close to the border with Cambodia in the south of Laos.
That was quite a journey from north to south and then further south. So, of one of the spots that you were able to cover, which were the highlights for you, or which were the attractions that you really liked? You mentioned that the waterfalls were really something else out there. So, which were the waterfalls that you really liked, or what were the other spots, maybe some cultural spots that were the highlights for you during your time there?
Yeah, I think where we stayed in Luang Prabang, there's a waterfall there that's called the Quang Si waterfall, which is on different levels. It's absolutely beautiful. It's probably the one that everybody sees on Instagram and TikTok of people taking photos. It's absolutely stunning. There's also some incredible waterfalls in Paksa. There's 3 that are really close together. I think Luang Prabang had the waterfalls.
Yeah, and some
well.
fantastic food in Luang Prabang as well. We had some restaurants that we visited there that were really nice. Got lots of temples, some fantastic sunset views on hilltops. And one of the things that was a nice surprise, we visited the UXO Centre in Luang Prabang, which was really interesting. We learned about all of the unexploded ordnance and the work that's being done to clear all of that up, which was really informative for us. So that was a must-see attraction for us.
Yeah.
Recommendation.
I think Luang Prabang had a lot of different things. So there was a lot of mix of nature and culture. And I think we both agreed that we would have liked to spend a little bit longer there to explore the town and city a little bit more.
And also Don Det, there's so much to offer in Don Det as well. A really nice, quiet town. It's on an island. And there was lots for us to do. We could walk around, really accessible to get around there. And we went on a fantastic kayaking trip one day while we were there. It was really incredible.
Yeah, and hardly anybody goes that south. So there's not many tourists there at all. So it's really quiet and just feels really untouched and not changed by tourism too much, which is exactly the type of places that we love.
That's so nice. So from the north, you started off with like Luang Prabang is like a UNESCO heritage spot with all the cultural influences of exploring all the cultural aspects of the country. And then further south as you went, some adventure activities as well as some amazing and quiet time. So you were mentioning that you tried some really good food in Luang Prabang. So what were some of the dishes that you managed to have, or what are the special highlights of the cuisine that other travelers should also go for?
Yeah, you can start with your favourite one.
Yeah, I think when we were in Luang Prabang, I had tofu larb. So I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat any meat. And there's a really nice dish in Laos called larb, L-A-R-B. And it was fantastic. It's very herby and it's got spices in it. And yeah, the tofu was really well cooked. So that was really nice. I wanted to add that a few times during our time in Laos. But there were some really nice French bakeries in Luang Prabang, and yeah, Fran fell in love with some of the bakeries we came across.
Yeah, there's a famous one called Le Banaton, which does incredible almond croissants, which are my favourite, and fresh bread that they do every day. So there's a lot of French influence in Laos, understandable because of the history. But yeah, the bakeries are great. I think I had another dish that was pumpkin and sausage, like Laotian sausage curry, which was incredible. And it doesn't tend to be that spicy, the food in Laos, but it's packed with like herbs, really fresh ingredients, a lot of vegetables. Very easy to be a vegetarian in Laos. Yeah, we ate really well. We went to that when we were in Vientiane. There's a restaurant called Doi Kanoi, and the chef there specialises in bringing more of the traditional recipes to the mainstream. So the menu is very small and it's all her family's favourites and her favourites. And the food was incredible.
Very good.
And things that you wouldn't normally have, the red ant larvae in salads and things that Western cultures wouldn't really experience, but the food was great there. We ate very well.
Oh, wow, nice. I'm really glad to learn that there are lots of options for vegetarians as well, because I'm also vegetarian. So that's really nice. So that sounds plenty of options, especially like restaurants and bakeries. Are there any street foods as well that you guys try?
Well, when we were in Luang Prabang, there was a nice little street market that was open during the night, and they do tons of stuff. They do smoothies and lots of other things. One of the things that we had there was like a coconut pancake. It was really nice, just freshly made by some young guys that were making them in the store. But there's tons of street food options in Luang Prabang in particular at that night market that we visited.
Lots of noodles and rice dishes and things like that as well. But yeah, that coconut pancake and coconut waffles, they were delicious.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, you guys said that you ate well in Laos, so there were good restaurants as well as street food options. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys now about the kind of accommodations you picked where you were moving through the country. Did you stay at hotels or were these hostels, or what did you pick to in the 3 weeks that you were there?
I think we only stayed in hotels, actually. I think in terms of our budget, we're more budget, mid-range options. So we do try to go for more affordable accommodation options where possible. But we also like our creature comforts like aircon and private rooms, private bathrooms. So yeah, primarily hotels. And I'd say most of them were lovely and we absolutely would stay there again. The accommodation options are really affordable in Laos, and quite often you get breakfast included as well. So you had some really comfy stays. A couple of the stays were a little bit more budget and a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Stay there, a bit more basic maybe.
Yeah, I think if we were to return, we would probably find different accommodation for one or two of the places that we stayed. But the vast majority of places we stayed were very nice.
Yeah, and very affordable. I don't think we were paying more than $20 a night for the hotel, including a 4-star hotel with a rooftop pool and breakfast.
Our hotels in Paxa and Vientiane were very nice. I think we looked out on those. They were very comfortable. As Fran said, the one in Paxa had a rooftop swimming pool and great breakfast and a really nice view out of our window as well. So that was, we were very fortunate to have that. And even at Luang Prabang, we stayed over the river, so it was slightly more affordable than staying right in the middle of town.
So Don Det was nice. We had it was quite different to the other places that we stayed at. So they were like riverfront bungalows. And we had our own decking the sunset was like just happening right in front of us. We had a hammock. So that felt very relaxing. And the sunsets in Laos are beautiful. So yeah, we quite a good mix, quite a different range of things. I think I'm glad we ended with the Don Det accommodation because that was just having the sunset there on your doorstep every evening was really lovely.
I get it now why you said that Don Det is the one that's your favorite.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance remember the name of the property?
In Don Det? Yeah, I think it was just called Don Det Guest House. I think you're right, Don Det Sunset Guest House rings a bell, but I sometimes just throw in the word sunset or those generic words into hotel stays.
So when you were moving through Laos, you mentioned that the trains were what you mostly took, like those were the primary mode of transport that you were using between the cities.
In the north, yeah, so they go as far as Vientiane, and then after that, you have to travel by bus or by car.
Okay. So in the north, the traveling part was easy, but as you move south, does it get more challenging?
Yes. In a nutshell, we had a very traumatic bus journey from Vientiane going down to Thaket.
Thaket to Paxa.
To Paxa, yeah. The roads are just very poorly maintained, and there will just be cows or animals grazing at the side of the road that often would just walk out into the road. And the buses themselves, the bus that we took, was incredibly run down. The seats were ripped. It was falling apart a little bit as we were going down, and it was very full with people sat in the aisles, which isn't a usual travel experience for us at all. I think we just got unlucky with that route, but it wasn't a very comfortable 8 hours compared to the north especially. But the rest of the car journeys were buses, a lot more comfortable. But I think our biggest tip was if you're going to have to make a longer journey in the south or going from the north to the south, try and break it up a little bit, which is why we stayed in Thaket. maybe look to see if there's some other places to make that journey a little bit shorter, so you don't have to do a big uncomfortable journey unless you absolutely have to.
That makes sense. I think the southern part is definitely not that touristy yet. Like the locations are very low-key, quiet towns, and that's why there's no direct way to get there. So you have to probably take a car, definitely, and it can get challenging.
Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised. I think most of the people that we met along the way, particularly in northern Laos, had only really gone as far as Vientiane before they would move on to another country. As we went further south beyond Vientiane into southern Laos, we saw far fewer people, so it was a lot quieter. And yet it was a little bit more challenging to get around, but it wasn't too much of a headache, I would say. I think it's just occasionally you might come across a bus that wasn't as comfortable as what we might be used to. But yeah, I think the advice around breaking journeys up definitely helps. But there are bus stations in every town, so there's no issue with finding a bus at all. They're definitely always available.
Yeah, just having those expectations, especially for people that maybe are used to traveling somewhere like Thailand, where it's a well-oiled machine of being able to get around places. It's really convenient and straightforward. It's still in progress in Laos, so just go in with an open mind and no expectations of what you're gonna experience. For the most part, everything was fine, but character building.
Yeah, just as long as whoever's visiting has their expectations right, I think that should be fine. And just a little bit of planning ahead in terms of keeping that extra break or like just some time off to break that really long journey would be great. Yeah. Within the cities themselves, especially the capital or when you were in the northern cities, were you walking around a lot, or how were you going to the waterfalls or like the spots that you wanted to see within the cities?
We did do some walking around, mostly just local short walks, but to get from place to place within towns and cities, we used an app called InDrive. So people might be familiar with an app called Grab, where you book taxis from A to B. And InDrive is essentially the same thing, but it's just specific to Laos. And the other thing that's quite quirky about it is that you have to set the price that you're willing to pay for that journey that you'd like to make. And you have to haggle with the taxi driver through the app to decide on the final price. So it's a bit of fun along the way, but it's really easy and straightforward to use. And generally the costs of getting from A to B using this app are very affordable. They're quite cheap to do. There are tuk-tuks available as well if you need, and you're not able to use the app. They're always available. But of course, like anywhere, just make sure that people have to agree on a price before you get into the tuk to make sure that's all safe and sorted. We hired a scooter a few times as well, because that can be a cost-effective way of getting around, particularly if we've got a few activities in the space of a few days. That helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just be mindful of the roads. And if you're not experienced on a scooter, I wouldn't recommend Laos to be the first place that you give that a go, especially the more rural areas, just being aware of that. Yeah, we did it when we first got to Laos. We didn't realise that Grab isn't a thing there. You can't use it at all. So we're so glad that there was another option for us. We've become very reliant on using that app. But yeah, super easy to use, really easy to get around once you're in these places as well. They're usually quite small. Vang Vieng is tiny. So you actually you can walk around, no issues.
You mentioned it. I think within the country, you've used trains, buses, scooters, tuk-tuks, and taxis. So that's quite a range of transport options. But it's good to know that there are plenty of ways in which one can move around. And all of them sound like they're quite convenient to use, at least. Yeah. Okay. What about the currency? Did you have to carry a lot of cash on you, or were you able to use cards or other digital modes of payment?
Yeah, we just used ATMs to take cash out, and we had no issues there. You get a lot of notes with Laotian kit, so you get a lot of paper money that's hundreds of thousands will come out. So the inflation is a little bit unstable over there. So the ATMs can sometimes be overworked because they're having to dispense so much cash. So they can be a little bit temperamental. So just check that it accepts your MasterCard or Visa. We didn't have any cards swallowed, we didn't have any issues using ATMs. But we know other people that have, but that tended to be maybe later in the day when the ATMs maybe are running out of money or they're a bit overworked from the day. But yeah, the exchange rate was pretty good for us when we were there.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And the other thing is, as a backup, we carried some dollars with us as well, because that always helps if we need to exchange any money in country, just as a backup. And then the other bit of advice that we got was to try and use ATMs that are attached to an actual bank rather than just ATMs that are out in the open. Just because if your card does get swallowed, at least you can go into the bank and just let them know and try and get your card back as quick as possible. And also try and do it on a day that isn't Saturday or Sunday, just in case the bank's closed on those days. So just a forward planning always helps with those things as well.
Those were all good ATM tips. So it's mostly cashes than use. There isn't that much of a concept of using cards or digital payments in the country.
We could at some of the hotels. So we could pay by card at some of the hotels that we stayed in, but cash was preferred in most places, and sometimes dollars was preferred over local currency as well, just because the inflation is so unstable and so dependent on other currencies that the dollar seems to be a little bit more stable than that. But we didn't have any issues. We did a bit of both, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah. So did you face any issues with language or like anything in terms of communication while you were there? Or was it okay to speak in English and you would be able to navigate your way through that?
Yeah, I think that most people spoke pretty good English. As I've said before, I think it's always really nice to try and learn a few bridge words in some of the basic language just to help bridge that gap and say hello and say thank you. And that always goes a long way with locals. But generally, we didn't have any issues. A lot of people speak a lot better English than we will ever speak Laotian. So
Yeah.
we're very appreciative of that.
And the Translate app as well. We've used that a lot. I think everyone that we met was so keen to help us and to communicate with us as well. And as Max said, we've learned that if you learn the word for delicious or tasty and are able to use that in restaurants, that is so well appreciated, and it goes a really long way just that you're willing to try and give the language a little bit of a go.
That's quite a nice tip. Yeah, if you appreciate food,
Yeah,
that's a great way to connect with anyone, especially if they made the food.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you guys have any other tips or anything you think that people who are going to visit Laos should know before they land up over there? Anything you would do differently if you went again?
I think if we did it again, we'd love to see more of the northeast, and we'd feel more confident just going off the usual route that people follow. We did it this time round and we were a little bit nervous about it because there's not much out there in terms of recommendations of where to go, and we're a bit nervous that we might have made a bad decision because not much on Don Det, especially because it's so small. But it really paid off, and I'm really glad that we did that. And don't be afraid to pick somewhere on a map that you think is really interesting and try and make your way there, because you might be really pleasantly surprised.
And I guess you guys are now pros at navigating through a little bit of unknown in this country. So you would
Yeah, we try. It's still, there's still times where we've stayed somewhere and been like, oh, we want to stay here again if we could do it. But if you don't try, you don't know. So,
but in your next trip, you're willing to take more risks because you know that the reward can be very good as well.
yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the most surprising thing about Laos from this 3 weeks that you spent over there? What did you learn that was something that really was unexpected for you?
I think we were very pleasantly surprised by how nice and affordable it all was. There's some great places to visit. We've already mentioned all of the cities and towns that we visited. And there's some great food there and really friendly people. It's a really nice place that doesn't get spoken about as much as many other countries nearby, but it's a bit of a hidden gem.
Yeah.
And I think it does deserve a bit more attention, really. So yeah, I think
one of the things as well that we didn't realise until we visited the UXO centres and the COPE Centre is that Laos was actually the most heavily bombed country during the Vietnam War. So it's got a huge history of how the the community have had to overcome that, and also the after effects of these unexploded ordnance that are in farmers' fields that children are picking up and injuring themselves. And there's some great work with charities going on trying to clear the land so that people can farm and build freely. And that's something we'd never learned about or heard about before. I think that was really inspiring, seeing that side of the impacts that the war had as well, especially coming from Vietnam and seeing the direct impact. But that was really interesting to learn. And those charities are doing such incredible work, and it's completely free to visit them. I'm really glad that we went to those.
Yeah, really opening stuff.
Yeah.
That's really nice, yeah. Especially like for countries which have this kind of a dark part of their history to overcome for them. It is time consuming and challenging. And it's good to know that like there are organizations working with them. But it's also like when we as travelers visit them, we also spread the word about it, that it's not just a dark part of history that they should get confined to, but also there are beautiful places, beautiful people over there that are waiting to be seen by the world. Yeah. That's really nice. So I have my last question for you, which is, did you bring back any souvenirs from...
I would have loved to. Travelling full-time as backpackers, we're very one in, one out when it comes to buying things.
We've only got small backpacks, so we can't really take too much with us.
No.
Yeah.
If you go the next time, what souvenirs would you pick? Like, what did you have your eye on?
For me, they've got lovely fabrics. So you can buy some gorgeous scarves and the wrap skirts that they've got, the more traditional wrap skirts, beautiful. I think I probably would have bought a couple of those at least.
Yeah, I think if I could take some of that tofu lard back with me, I probably would.
Max was really impressed by the food. Okay. But yeah, that's good. Like next time when you go, you can pick up on the things that you're still dreaming about.
A good excuse to go back.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing about your trip to Laos with me today. It was really great listening to you, and I hope that the viewers will find the information that you've shared today useful. So thank you so much for that.
No, thank you for having us. It's been great.
With that, we will sign off for today. Bye-bye.